our FOA is about the differences between different genders and song lyrics. So more specifically, male and female songwriters and how the differences between them, their styles, that sort of thing.
So a little bit of background is what we got from our books is saying that this is just a little bit of background. We'll go into more in depth with the specific genders later, but for a little bit, supposedly what they've come up with now is that people have made automated. Using machines, they can be able to tell with an 80% success rate if a song was written by a guy or a girl. So it's easy to tell. There's a lot of different small or large things that could tell if the song was written by a guy or a girl with the themes or what they say or how they say it. And we do have a little small survey we want you to take. I believe I shared it with Mr. Bottle.
So I'll put it on Schoology. There it is. It's the very first update on Schoology. Thank you very much.
Is everyone just about done with the...
Guys, why don't you close your laptops when you're done so you know we're all back in the game.
Let's see if I can actually...
Where's the one with the
What's on Schoology first updates? Oh, that's it's right there in your yellow link.
Oh, what the hell? Okay.
You gotta stay hydrated.
It's the screen is frozen.
Yeah, I noticed.
I'm responsible. Yes. Okay,
Manny.
So we're having some trouble with the survey right now, so I'll just go online. Right, so you figure the presentation.
That's what I'm trying to do. Just everything.
So yeah, starting with male songs, usually they're from a first-person perspective. They're occasionally they will be written in third person, but it's mostly from a first-person standpoint, and it's either from their personal view, or they're putting themselves maybe in the place of another person. sort of imagining themselves in a different time or place, sort of saying through their eyes how that person would have felt, I guess. So when it comes to what the song is about, it's typically between one or two things. Either it's about a girl who broke their heart, or it's about maybe a personal story. It might be some sort of narrative or a tale or something like that. And usually it will, and if it is a tale or something that isn't about a girl, it usually represents something larger or has a larger concept. So there's a lot of use of alliteration, similes, metaphors. Of course, that sort of varies depending on the author. When they are a story, they'll tend to be more action-based rather than emotional or emotion-based. So for the setting, usually they're actually not really in a defined sort of period of time. Sort of there's like a place where you can sort of place it, and somewhere in history, but it's not necessarily this is like the year these things happened. The reason that is usually just to make the song a bit more, I guess, so people can relate to it more. So, yeah. So it's supposed to be relatable songs. You can go to the next slide. So this is the first song. It's by Johnny Cash. If you want to take a moment to read the lyrics, but in the first line it establishes it's first person. I hear the train a-comin'. This is about, this was Johnny Cash. I'm not exactly sure. I believe he wrote this while he was visiting Folsom Prison. He was visiting the prisoners there, and he sort of wrote this song to describe, you know, their feelings and their general displeasure with the way the prisons run. It's basically about a train that runs by the prison, and it's talking about how he's putting himself in the shoes of a prisoner, saying that as a prisoner, when he hears the train passing by with free people moving on it, it really just demoralizes him. Of course, he didn't actually go to prison, but again, this is just seeing, it's sort of just putting himself in place of another, and then it's a pretty relatable song. Some alliteration here and there. Third line, sunshine, since. There's end rhyme, just general stuff that you would expect to see in a song or a poem. But other than that, it's really just the first person perspective and through the eyes of another that we're really seeing here. So this is by Dion. It's called Run Around Sue, and I wanted to include this one. You'll see why when we get to the next song, which is also by the same guy. But this is about this is a male song about a girl who broke his heart and just basically left him for somebody else and left that person for somebody else and just sort of, I guess, quote, ran around. So, I don't, yeah. Yeah, that's pretty much it in terms of that. It's pretty straightforward. I'll give you another minute if you want to look over it. And this is the next song by the same guy called The Wanderer, and this is about himself, and he's talking about how he's a ladies' man. And I find this funny because this was written during the 50s, and I find it funny how he writes this song about a girl who's unfaithful and goes out with all the guys in town, and then he just does the same thing but in different towns. So I thought that was pretty ironic. So he's talking about himself, and that's another thing that I failed to put in earlier, is that a lot of times when guys are talking about girls and they're not doing it in a way that they're talking about how they broke their heart, they're talking about how they are ladies' men, basically. So a lot of times in male songs we see this a lot, is just sort of bragging about themselves. So that also sort of relates to the first person perspective. Some people will say that because they're bragging about themselves, they're sort of self-centered, which is why they write in first person and why they write everything else sort of in the first person perspective. Yeah, we can go to the next one. Oh no, this is by Led Zeppelin. This is, as I said before, this is an adventure song. I'm not in, I believe this song was about, it's supposed to be about the Vikings going to, sailing from Scandinavia to England to pillage, but I think they wrote it while they were touring Eastern Europe. But yeah, this is just sort of, there's the use of repetition in the beginning there, but it's about, this is another one of the action songs, sort of. You see a lot of allusions, Valhalla, which is the hall where all the warriors would go and gather for Ragnarok, which was the final battle before the end of the war, end of the world. Other than that, that's pretty much all I have to say. I think you get a pretty good picture of what male songs are about, hopefully.
Yeah, and now we're moving on to what I had, and I had female songs. And like men, it is first person, but they don't seem to have they don't seem to sing about the same sort of songs. I said self-centered. That isn't how I would say it, but a lot of the songs seem to be about their pain and their loss, or what they wanted to do, or what they wish would happen, or what's happening that's great. Like all the newer songs, it's about them wanting to party, them breaking up with someone, or them wanting to break up with someone. So freedom as well. So just them wanting to breaking away, being themselves, love relationships, and it's a lot of wistful. They don't focus on the present and the now. It's more of them, like the Taylor Swift song that I'm going to show in a little bit, We Are Never Ever Getting Back Together. She's talking about before. It's always before, and they're never getting back together looking into the future. She doesn't focus on what's happening right now to herself, or really anyone. And while I did say it's wistful, there's also some female songwriters who will more seize the moment, where they want the party to start. They want the party doesn't start until I walk in. Famous song. And there's a lot of repetition and hyperbole in these as well. It's all exaggerated. There's never like an average day for in female songs. There's never like an average boring day. There's always something monumental happening that they feel the need to write a song about. So yeah, the first one is so I remember once a month, and just I'm really gonna miss you, and just the things that she says in the we're never getting back together is just very looking not really right now. It's just her thinking of all the things he did and how she's never gonna want to see that again. Then there's the repetition, of course, of both the line and the words ever, which seems to happen a lot, is the repetition of single words to emphasize a point. Doesn't always work. And it's just, and then she gets sort of wistful with, I'm really gonna miss. So she's, women's songs seem to be a lot more emotional in a way. Men have like an adventure going on, but women seem to be more focused on like themselves and the emotions that they're feeling at that time. And this is probably the number one for repetition that I found, which is, I really, 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 really want you. Yeah, 6. Repetition. And this is more of the ones of seizing the moment, where it's just, apparently she really wants the guy. That's what I've learned throughout this song. And it's just her trying to hold herself back, and this is again like relationships, like with Taylor Swift. A majority of the popular ones seem to be about their relationships dying while looping, or them really wanting the other person. And it seems very extreme in a way, so it's sort of hyperbole in the way she's feeling for the guy, which is, I don't know, to me I think it's a little bit too much, but that might just be me. And this is an older one, but this is a lot of repetition. And this is an older song by Aretha Franklin, This is one that my father listened to, but this is still very good. It's got a lot of repetition in it with the oohs and then the chorus and respect. There's this one is more about breaking free and like getting on the same level as men for respect. There is a little bit of hyperbole in it too, but it's mostly about the repetition and the theme of just freedom and breaking away from normal standards and trying to get a little bit of respect for yourself. And I play the song, but I don't know how much time we have right now. And so now the point that we're in is we're going to give you guys a minute or two. We're going to want you to read these lyrics that you see, and we're going to want you to guess if the song was written by a guy or a girl from what we've told you earlier. So we're going to give you a little bit with the first one, and then we'll move right along.
Do you know the song? Can you sing it?
Stand up and sing Call Me Baby. It's your favorite song.
Oh, one letter swing. Oh.
I feel this one's better.
Waiting for these changes to stay. This is my day. There's a voice inside that's trying to make
Oh, God, cheers. I don't. Did you hear that?
Alright, has everyone had a chance to read it over at least once?
Yeah.
Just the mail.
There was like a point to
Yeah, alright, so with a show of hands, how many of you think that this was written by a girl? And how many of you think this was written by a guy?
Boy.
And how many of you are not paying attention? So, alright.
There's no repetition.
No, there is. This is my day. This is my day.
Okay,
This is my
fine.
day. This is my day.
This was written by a woman.
Oh,
This
you knew.
is gasp. This is Danielle Bradbury. This is my day, as Ava was singing the whole time. So there is repetition, and it's more self-centered. And this one is one of the more of the breaking free, breaking away, making it her day.
Can you play it?
I wish
Yeah.
I had.
I want to see how close I got.
Let's see if Ava got the beat.
And this is the next one. This one's a little bit weirdly spaced, but. And if you know it, I've learned after Ava, don't sing it.
I
Just
can't
that way.
read it. Oh, I can. That's little. Song in the world tribute.
It's spoken.
Long time being
What?
the cause.
If that's a spoken.
Okay, this is clearly a boy.
Tribute.
I could
Everybody
have
think they
guessed
got
that.
it?
Yeah, is everyone?
It's a dude.
Who thinks it was a guy?
It's gotta be a dude.
It has to be because you're a girl
That's pretty
boy.
much unanimous. Yeah, this is by Tenacious D. It's called Tribute. But they're sort of like a comedy band, but this is, I mean, pretty obvious. He refers to his brother Kyle. It's about it's a story, there's a demon, action. Yeah.
Who's it by?
Tenacious D.
It is not by Jack Black.
Yeah, no, that is Jack Black.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
His
Jack
name
Black.
is Tenacious D.
No,
No,
his
that's the name of
band
his
is
band.
Tenacious D. His name is Jack Black. And
I love Jack Black. Great choice.
such a great song.
Even Jack Black.
Alright, and this is our last one. If you guys want to read this over, see if you guys. Has everyone gotten a chance?
Yeah.
All right. So, show of hands. How do you think this is by a guy?
Boy, you don't have that. Is I wrong again?
All right. And how do you think it was a girl?
Terrible.
Well, you guys are right.
Oh.
This is this was sort of, we were trying to trick you guys. This is a song called Planet Hell by Nightwish, a all-female metal band. So,
My favorite
so there are parts of
Yeah.
there are parts of this song that that do at least even a little bit show that this was female. This might not be in first person, but there is a lot of repetition in hope and love, not as much as in a relationship sense, but in more of the end of the world sort of sense. And then there's a lot of wishing and dreaming and wanting to get off planet Hell. That's usually number one on the list. And yeah, so this was sort of a way to show how just sort of how sometimes the stereotypes of how men and women write songs can sometimes throw people astray, because most of you thought this was written by men, but it wasn't. We tricked you. And yeah, that's the sources. Anything else to say?
No. Questions?
So that last song you showed us, do you think the software you mentioned would have gotten it correct?
I mean,
Maybe.
in the beginning, they invented software to try to guess if they can, with an 80% success rate, tell if it's written by a man or a woman.
I think it's 80% success.
What?
The key thing is 80%.
Yeah,
success.
it's not 100%. So
Is that the software? No.
no, we don't have the software. I think that'd be like a big, like deep blue chess computer box.
Can you talk a little bit about that? Like, what is the? I don't know. Like, did you learn about it from one of these?
Yeah, from one of the journals. The in the literary and linguistic computing. So it was invented. So like what we did, it looks for like key parts of the song, like what is mentioned, what is mentioned in the song, how what is said is written. So sort of like what we did, except this is a computer, so it probably does it a lot faster and with a lot more accuracy. And so it takes apart songs and will look at like the specific words. So maybe it doesn't focus on like a theme or anything like that, but it will focus on things like repetition, like words used. So that's why it's only 80%, because if you look at themes, it'd probably get a lot closer to 100. But it's not perfect, but it is. But for stereotypes to be powerful enough to give computers an 80% success rate is a little bit scary for how we write our own songs. Any other questions?
Oh, essentially.
Like, how much do you think the genre of the music has to do with the gender roles?
I would say, I mean, for instance, a rock song is probably going to be more written by a man, as we saw before. With Bracton's song, you were all sort of thrown by that, finding out it was an all-female metal band. I would also say that probably, I guess, the rap genre probably a bit more is written by men, obviously, because there's a lot more artists who are male. But it really just depends. The genre, in terms of who writes it, is really just, it's sort of more based on who the song is supposed to be written for. So songwriters, oftentimes, they're the same, I think usually they're the same gender as the people singing it.
Samsu, are you implying though that, like, for instance, metal lyrics, it's more difficult to distinguish versus country lyrics,
Like,
perhaps, where it might be easier?
That like certain genres might have like stronger gender roles than other genres.
That would be the way, isn't
No.
I would definitely say yeah. So like what we saw with Johnny Cash, who's a country artist, and then Dion, who was early rock artist, which was sort of when rock was transitioning from like sort of like defining itself in country in a way. But yeah, basically I would say it does have to do, genre has to do with gender roles in some degree. I didn't really That's not what this was on, but I would assume that there is some difference between different genres.
Thanks, guys.